This next guy we're going to talk about is one of your favorites, one of my favorites, but he's a completely different type of player. And that is Rodney Gallagher from Western Pennsylvania. You see the rankings are pretty much in the same region. I think 159 is a tad low, but I mean, it's not that far away from his highest ranking. I think the 97-99 is pretty accurate. I think he's a kid with a much higher ceiling than that. But when you talk, we're going to show on film, kind of why maybe it's a little harder to rank him as a higher guy, because he doesn't play wide receiver. This is a kid that doesn't play the position that you're recruiting him to play at the next level. Ranking wise, Ryan, where do you see Rodney Gallagher?
So, I mean, I'm a little more of a projection guy, right? So I think Rodney Gallagher's a top 75 player that I have watched in this class. And you could sell me on him being a top 50 player, because I think that the athleticism and I think the upside is definitely of a top 50 type of football player. Now, I agree with you that it's a fair ranking because there is projection, because you just haven't seen him run routes. You haven't seen it. It's not out there on film. But I think athletically speaking, there's no reason to think that he can't do just everything that you need of him as a slot. I think he could play to the field as that X kind of Notre Dame system if you need him to too. It's like, I think that he has versatility in that sense. So I understand the ranking. I accept the ranking. I won't argue against it too much. But when I watch him, I think he's a top 75 type of athlete.
Yeah.
I really do.
And that's kind of where you get into, what rankings are a lot about, sort of how you think a ranking should be put together. Do you think it's about projection? Do you think about so SI 99 really focuses on a guy's floor? Well, if you're focusing on the floor, Rodney Gallagher may not be a guy you're going to have as high as if your projection is more of looking down the road. And I think that can make it a little bit challenging. That's why, we came up with I came up with the Irish breakdown, sort of that dual grade system, which is where to be able to tell, hey, here's where the kid is right now. He's a top 100 kind of guy. I'd put him in the bottom half of that. But here's where he can be. And you talk about, comps, and it's like there's some natural comps. I think he kind of looks a lot like Will Fuller. Pennsylvania kid, similar body, similar body type. Although I think he's a little bit thicker than Will was coming out of high school, a similar region. But I don't know if Notre Dame has had a whole lot of kids like Rodney Gallagher on their roster. And that's another reason why I think he is a guy that you really gotta get on campus soon and see if you can make some moves with. Because of the three we've talked about, I'd say he's probably third right now as far as where Notre Dame is with him, because he's just not really anywhere in recruiting right now, because he's still playing basketball. And that's the other part, is this kid is a dynamic basketball player. They won whatever the championship was, the Whippeal championship that he scores 26 in the title game, gets fouled with like a second or so left in the game, drills both free throws. I don't think he hit the rim on either one of them to win the game. I mean, that's just ice cold, that's kind of the kind of kid that you want. And drops 26. I mean, and as we've said before in the show, he's a kid that was being recruited by Division I schools as a basketball player. Now, that's not the case anymore. He's focusing on football, but real dynamic kid. So let's pop up the film, Ryan, because the first thing that y'all are going to notice about Rodney Gallagher is he's not a receiver. He's a quarterback. So you're going to see some throws in here, but you're going to see a lot of runs, and you're going to see a really quick, shifty kid with some speed. There's some discussions I've had with people about his speed. Some people think he's really fast. I see it at times, and other times I don't necessarily know if I think he's necessarily a burner. I wonder if he's more of like an Avery Davis, a more quick than fast kind of guy. But the one thing about him, Ryan, that we can agree on, he's very sudden. He's got tremendous feet, really great feet.
Now, I consider him explosive and quick. I also do not see what I would call like dynamic deep speed. I think it's good. Right. I don't think it's like,
that's why I have a hard time with the Will Fuller connection. The description. Now, if we're going to talk about what Will Fuller was in college, but obviously Will Fuller, but even in high school, Will wasn't a burner, but he was a little bit of a longer strider than Rodney is.
Yeah.
I mean, Rodney great for me, feel for the game.
Yeah, Rodney for me is just, I mean, he's that dynamic slot, as a high volume type of guy that he is just going to make guys look silly in space. Like, that is just him for me, right? Like, I don't consider Will that type of guy. Will is I'm going to run past any person that you put in front of me type of player.
this is the kid that you talk about, look, we've got to figure out ways to get him the football, right? I don't
Mm-hmm.
care if it's jet sweeps, reverses, screens, crossers. This kid needs touches because he can do so much. Because I do think he's one of those home runs waiting to happen. Because even though we're not saying he doesn't have great long speed, we're just saying I don't necessarily see that, partly because of how he's used, and I think partly because he is a two-sport star. But this kind of stuff is just dumb. I mean, this is ridiculous what he's able to do. I absolutely love his agility and his athleticism, but he's dynamic. Like, he's really hard to bring down, and he's that kind of kid that, at the very least, he's going to be a third down nightmare just because of
Mm-hmm.
how quick he is and his ability to if you can teach him how to play, to get open and be shifty. And again, I don't think he's necessarily he's not a guy that plays the game with great fundamentals because of the position he plays. They're asking him, hey, dude, just go do something. Like, here's the ball. This is an old school coach, right? Who, I don't know who his coach is, but he's got an old school mentality, which is you put your best athlete at quarterback and you just snap him the ball. You know what I mean? Like, don't run the risk of having to have somebody else throw it to him. Just snap him the ball and go let him do something. But I love the elusiveness that this kid has. And like, you see the burst is like right there. I don't see a second gear here. I don't see the second gear here. But what I see, Ryan, is what he's doing 30 yards down the field is what he's doing as soon as he gets going. Like, he's gone right now. He's full speed. Like, he's already at full speed before he reaches the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that.
And he's going to break angles because he's a guy that hits his top speed so quickly, not necessarily because he has that second gear. There's a little bit of a difference there. But I mean, my favorite thing is I think that he just navigates space so well. Like, he just has great vision in the open field.
Now, this is one of those plays, Ryan, that I say I do see it at times. This is one of those plays where you see, like, okay, that's a little bit more of a burst than we're used to seeing. Like, this right here, this is a little bit more of a burst than I think it's from a speed standpoint what we've seen. But this right here is what makes him special. That right there. So it's like, come on, how do you tackle a kid like that in space?
Right.
He's really dynamic. Really, and this again, neither one of the guys that we've talked about are this kind of player. He's completely opposite to what those guys are. Yep. That's a good thing. That's something you want. What have we been begging for years at Irish Breakdown, right? And you and I have talked about this since we've known each other for now. It's been a couple years now, and that is you want a diverse room at receiver. Chancey Stuckey's talked about this. He wants his point. This is the point guard that Chancey Stuckey was talking about in his interview with Sean Davis. He wants a point guard and a shooting guard and a 3 and a 4. This is his point guard. Just that guy that you got to get the ball to. You got to say, hey, look, man, I don't, just here's the ball. Go do something with it. Like, this freezes this kid. I feel kind of bad for this kid. It's like, oh.
And that's not how that play is supposed to be run. No. He's just a good athlete, like that is a power read. He is supposed to be running power inside. He's just like, just kidding. I'm going to go outside.
Because he makes the wrong decision. Like, that's the thing is and I say this kid kind of plays it well,
He does.
But he's supposed to pull this ball and get vertical, but he waits too long. And that kid kind of plays it well. And so Rodney's like, I'm going to do something with it. And I'm going to go score. That's a really impressive play right there. Really impressive play. Yeah, I just love the idea of like, okay, he's our best player. Let's just snap him the ball, and you don't have to worry about like ball mechanics of handoffs or throwing the ball to him or pass pro or anything like that. Hey, we couldn't get the ball to our best player because we couldn't protect the quarterback. Well, he is the quarterback. Just snap it to him, and let him go.
Yep. Let him return kicks. Let him play quarterback. Just get the ball in his hands. Yep. I could not agree more. Good
patience here. And like plays like this don't really project as well to the next level, but you love the fact that he just is always looking to make a play. It's always like, I'm gonna score. Like, he wants to score every time he touches the football. And I prefer that out of a receiver much more than I do a running back. I want a running back to kind of say, look, sometimes it's okay to just get 2, right? Receivers a little bit more. You want them to have a little bit more of that. This is a nice burst here. This is one of those ones where you see a burst like right there. You see a little bit of a burst. So you see it at times, Ryan. You just don't see it all the time. And that's what makes me, I'm not quite sure of what his speed is. But here's the thing we don't know. We've yet to see him catch anything other than a kick or a snap. Right. And so those are some things where also I say, look, like it's hard for me to put him as a top 50 recruit right now as a wide receiver because I don't know if he can catch. Right? Like,
It's
I don't know
fair.
what his ball skills are like, you know? So that's where I get into where I don't disagree with you in regards to projection, but if I'm that's he caught the ball there. As a
Playing
DB,
defense.
look at
Playing
that
defense. Isn't it?
instincts. But that's kind of for me is like I just need to see him catch the ball a little bit before I'm ready to go in. But but that also says a lot about his talent, though. If I'm willing to say he's a definite top 100 player without having ever seen him catch a pass, and we're talking about him as a receiver, you know, that says, I think, a lot. It says everything you need to know about that. That's you know, that shows a little bit of his leaping ability right there.
Sure does.
I think I've seen a clip of him dunking, and he's only 6 feet tall, 5'11", 6 feet tall. So
Yeah.
that would be something that's impressive.
You know,
Not
he's not the biggest kid in the world, but he's definitely springy.
right. I like that. You know, obviously looking for the ball, finding it. Not a corner right now. You know, he's gonna have to
No.
learn that part of it. But he's a tough kid. Just that right there, though, that elusiveness is just, man, that's
And the
really, really
finish
enjoyable.
too. Shows
And
the
look
toughness
where
to
we are in the
finish.
highlights. We're like not even halfway through his highlights right now. Like this kid is
Must be nice.
ridiculous.
Must be
Yeah,
nice.
this kid is
Yeah.
ridiculous. I'm gonna try and see if we have him dunking.
Oof. Yeah, man, he makes people look silly on the second level.
Yeah.
Makes people look silly. He's got running back instincts too as a runner, which is, I mean, he gives you a lot of excitement because, like, I mean, this kid could be a wildcat. He could play in the
Right.
slot. He could be a jet sweep guy. Like, there's so much that you could do with this type of kid.
Right. And you talk about sort of putting that ideal recruiting class together. You know, you talk about having a big guy like a Braylon James, and then just that do it all guy like a Cardinal Tate, and then you're trying to defend those guys while also having to deal with this guy running jets and crossers and, you know, reverses and all that kind of stuff. Like, look at this. This is just, I mean, this is, come on now.
Arrows on an RPO and just getting the ball in his hand quick. Like, it's just,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Like, this is just like, dude, I'm going to make a play. Like, what is that? Like, what is that? That's just, it's a 3rd and 1 that the other team just, you know, they're trying to trick something. The other team plays it well, and it's like, let you kill, still can't stop it. You know, I mean, come on. I'm gonna put something else here that we don't often do. So Ryan, I'm actually gonna stop. I'm gonna stop right now. I'll let a couple more of these run, but I want to show some of his basketball highlights because I think that really gives you a sense of his you really see his quickness in some of these basketball highlights. And so I want to show some of those. So just give me a second.
Good.
That's Rodney Gallagher, everybody. Ryan, I know you like that kid a lot, and so do I. He's a really good football player. Now, Notre Dame, Ryan, obviously it's early. I mean, he's barely scratched the surface of his ability his recruiting process at this point in time. Just because, I mean, he's like you said, he's even though he's focused on football as his next sport, his priority is his basketball team right now. That's his priority right now. And so until that changes, obviously he's the recruiting process is put on hold a little bit, but he's a guy that the Notre Dame staff loves. He is a priority for the Notre Dame staff. They're all over him. It's just about, you got to get him on campus to be able to try to start establishing that relationship.